Hi, and welcome to Rain Radio, where we have juicy conversations that lead to powerful transformation. We are your hosts. I'm Lila Sage.
And I'm Naomi Calderon. And today we are going to be talking about the sovereignty of language. So grab your journal and your drink, pop on your crown, and let's chat. Speaking of drinks, what you drinking today, Lila?
Hot apple cider, which is turning out to have been a weird choice because I am now melting inside my hoodie.
Apple cider sounds good.
It's so tasty. It's not spiked. It's too early in the day.
It's 5 o'clock somewhere.
I still get to be functional for a few more hours. So.
All right.
What's in your cup?
Today in my cup is, I'm just going to keep calling it hot lemonade. Basically, it's lemon water with a little bit of honey. Although I did pick up some ginger, so there will be some ginger lemon tea later.
That sounds fantastic. I'm slightly jealous of the ginger piece.
It's been hard to find. I think we had to go to, not that we went to 3 stores to find ginger, but it took multiple stores 2 weeks apart to find some freaking ginger.
Yeah.
I didn't realize there was a ginger shortage suddenly.
Because there was an everything shortage, let's be honest. People are buying things they don't normally buy. Ooh,
right?
Okay.
I'm like, look at you people finally eating your beans because there's none on the shelves.
Exactly. Hilarious thing. The things in the grocery store, like the things that we typically eat, seem to be the things that are left in the store. Like all of the pasta was gone and all of the beans were gone, but there were fresh veggies every place.
Right.
One of my coworkers said, "Oh my God, the entire frozen food section of Aldi was sold out except for the cauliflower pizza crust, and that's the pizza crust we use."
Yay for us, right?
Yeah, super hilarious. Okay, so the sovereignty of language.
Yeah. You know I'm a big word nerd, so. Not from the I like to use really big words. So let's just differentiate that right there as to what we're talking about and what we're not. There's one gentleman I know who, and I had a really good GPA. I was a great student. And there are times when he's talking, I have to pull up Google and look up what his words mean. And I'm like, can you just, and he likes to sound super uber intelligent. I'm like, can you just talk like the rest of it? You don't have to use a bunch of slang but just use words that don't have 17 syllables. Can you
so
please?
Talking to him is like reading a Toni Morrison novel.
Oh my gosh. Makes my eye twitch. So that's not the languaging we're talking about necessarily. Maybe.
Not today.
But not today so much. Today we're talking about the sovereignty of language, which is really, to me, it's about what's the dialogue in your head? What are you talking about? What are you listening to from outside of yourself? Because those are important key pieces in owning, claiming, standing in that sovereignty.
There is an India Ari line that says, "The words that come from your mouth, you're the first to hear."
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And in NLP, we often talk about the fact that our unconscious mind, some people might refer to that as your subconscious mind. In my studies, we always referred to it as unconscious versus subconscious because there's nothing sub about it. Sub presupposes that something is super to it or above it. And our unconscious is actually very powerful. So we just always refer to it that way. But just know that if you're like, what's the unconscious? Same thing. Subconscious, unconscious. You get to call it what you want. But that it's always eavesdropping. It's a nosy little fucker, right? So it's always eavesdropping on you. So that, I think that line makes perfect sense. You are the first person to hear the things that come out your mouth.
My therapist yesterday said thoughts are like toddlers.
Oh, Lord, yes.
Always eavesdropping. That was not the connection she made, but yes. When my children were little, all of the things that came out of my mouth that later came out of their mouths, I'm like, when were you listening to that?
Right?
All the freaking
They're
time.
little sponges when they're that age, right?
Yes. But not only that, she talks about when you're not paying attention to them. When you know, moms are like, oh, God, when it's really quiet, there is a problem.
Yes.
That's when they're coloring on the walls or pulling all of the toilet paper off the roll or. So yeah, they need a little bit of attention sometimes.
Yes. Yeah. And that eavesdropping, that's where the language part comes in. It's so important, not solely in paying attention to our thoughts, but that's the first place. When I look at languaging from a sovereignty standpoint, that's the first place I look, is what are the thoughts in my head, because that's the language. That's what I'm telling myself. It's also going to be coming from the outside. What are we listening to? So what are we feeding our brains and our body through words? And also, what's our interpretation of those words? What in NLP we look at it as what's our internal representation of words. So I think all three of those places, it's good to look when we're talking the sovereignty of language and our own personal power and sovereignty. So talk to me about the thoughts aspect, Lila.
I think thoughts are just words that don't come out of our mouths. And so when we are, especially when we're not aware that we are thinking weird and unusual things, then, or not even weird and unusual, but when we're not aware of the things that we're thinking, then it runs our lives. So my favorite example, I am probably the easiest person to get along with and being in a relationship with. And in my first marriage, I did not require monogamy. I share very well, which is a weird trait for an only child, but I do. And I'm a fan of fairness. So maybe he lied to me because he knew that if he told me the truth, then he needed to learn how to share too. That's a whole different topic for another conversation. But this man lied to me about things that I knew he was lying to me about for years, for no reason, like no reason whatsoever. And then one day, I found a thought in my head that I had no idea was running around in the background making a mess, like a toddler. And it was that men lie. So this is a truth that is operating in my world that I was attracting to me that I had no clue was even in there. Yeah. And
absolutely.
This, like, it can be anything, but that's my favorite example because, as you know, if you've been around for any length of time, adventures with my ex-husband are my favorite teaching tools.
Right? Sometimes we attract the most amazing teachers into our lives, don't we? And the part with language about that, because yes, our thoughts create these beliefs and feelings and actions, and sometimes they drive our bus and we don't realize that they're driving our bus because they're so hidden from us. And yet when that comes forward and we have those aha moments, we can do something to shift it. Now,
absolutely,
you could have gone a couple ways. You could have kept telling yourself, well, men just lie and I mean, I'm just going to play this out like in a really big way. This is not how you did it, but a person could tell themselves, well, men just lie, and well, it's probably my fault, or men just lie and I can't trust men. Men aren't to be trusted. And then over and over again, we say this to ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that guy just spoke to me condescendingly. Say men can't be trusted. Men are jerks. Men lie. Mm-hmm. Oh, that guy just fill in the blank. And then all of a sudden our entire internal dialogue focuses on that. And that becomes our reality.
Yep.
So it starts with that internal conversation. So when you have another way this can show up, and I may or may not have brought this up before, being of an interesting age, for those of you who don't know what that means, perimenopause into menopause, folks. It provides a lot of training as well, a lot of life lessons. It can, certainly. And I've noticed, because I know my adrenals need specific support right now. That's not a good or a bad. I can make it a good or a bad, but it's not a good or a bad. It's just what is. Okay, great. So my acupuncturist and I are working on supporting those adrenals. Yay, that's awesome. So then I found, because my energy was low and I knew it was related to that, I had a perception, because I was often tired, I turned it into, I'm always exhausted. I am exhausted. I'm exhausted. I'm exhausted. I'm exhausted. Every time I turned around in my head, it was like, God, I'm just exhausted right now. Everything's exhausting me. Oh my gosh, there's so much to do. I'm exhausted. So this okay, it wasn't like that was the only thought in my head, because usually there's a lot of ping-ponging in my head, just FYI. But that thought showed up frequently. And guess what? The more I told myself I was exhausted, the more exhausted I was. Okay. And it just became a vicious cycle. And that's how our internal dialogue tends to be. And we're at choice in that dialogue. And it's been recent that I've decided to switch that dialogue. And every time that I'm exhausted thing comes up, I take a step back and I look at that. And I look at the truth of it. Is that true or is it not?
And what comes up for you?
Some moments I am really freaking tired. And that's also a place where it gives me an opportunity to look at, what am I needing? Mm-hmm. Am I needing nutrition for energy? Am I just needing a freaking nap? Is it that I need to take a step back because I'm swirling in the details of all the things? Just having that awareness gives me an opportunity to make a choice of what to do for myself. And it also gives me an opportunity to look at, how can I language this differently? Instead of just being like, oh, I'm so exhausted, which is very similar to, oh, I'm so busy, which is just a freaking lying badge of honor that we wear. Absolutely. Is I get to look at, what's that?
I said absolutely.
Right? And I'm exhausted has become my badge. I'm exhausted. And it's not because I'm so busy, but it's because my adrenals need support, which they do. But it gives me a chance to shift my relationship with my body if I change my internal dialogue. Because underneath that, I'm so exhausted is, I should have more energy than I do. Well, I guess I just can't fill in the blank. So there's been some bus drivers and also some bus riders along with that. I'm exhausted, and it gives me an opportunity to shift that around. It's like, no, I'm not exhausted. I might need a nap right now. Yes. Okay, great. I'll wait till the call's done. I might need I might need some food. I might need to change my supplementation to support my body differently. It might be I need to ask for help. Because if I'm that exhausted and I feel like I'm doing all the things, maybe it's just that I need some frickin' help.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. I get to use my mouth and ask if that's the case. But it helps me, it gives me an opportunity to shift my dialogue. If I'm constantly exhausted, for me, it tends to have this, and I'm always telling myself inside, I'm always exhausted. Now, if you're always exhausted and you don't know what's causing it, go to your doctor and have some tests run. That would be my encouragement to you. Because there could be something out of balance in your body if you're always exhausted.
Mm-hmm.
And from a languaging standpoint, for me, when I shift that dialogue, it shifts my whole energy. And it takes me out of victim mode, because after a time, if I'm always saying I'm so exhausted, for me, there's an energy behind it of, oh, well, but you don't understand because I'm going through this right now. And let me tell you, there's no power and no sovereignty in that shit. That is nothing but a bunch of martyrdom, victimhood crap. And I'm like, oh, no.
So called out.
Dear. Okay, so I'm two-legged like the rest of you, so yay, we can call each other out on this.
Yeah, I know that fully, completely, and wholeheartedly.
The whole hand on the forehead and, you know, the head tipped back, like a little bit of Gone with the Windness there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So.
I love what you said about changing the languaging. Mm-hmm. And I want to offer some ideas about how people can change their languaging.
Yes.
Because I'm an example person. I like an example. I am not a creator. I am an innovator. If you give me a wheel, I can make it faster. But if I got to make a wheel, we might be in trouble. So that being said, for me, what works is asking questions.
Mm-hmm.
So if I'm exhausted all the time, and I have been, some of the things that I've asked is, what do I need? Which thank you for that. That went on my vision board. What do you need? Y'all, my vision board's like basically a Trello board in cardboard form on my wall, because I am a word person, not a picture person. So I have a board full of questions on my wall, because that's how my brain works. So what do I need right now? It's a fantastic question to ask. Really, no matter what is going on that has you out of your seat of power.
Mm-hmm.
Another really good question is, what can I do about it? How can I change this? Mm-hmm. Two sides, same, two different versions of the same question. And the reason that I give those instead of affirmations, instead of going from I'm so exhausted to I have so much energy, is because my brain calls bullshit every time I try something like that.
Right.
Yeah, I'm so rich. My brain's like, have you seen your bank account? I'm like, okay, let's try something different. So it might not be easy to go from I'm so exhausted to I have so much energy, but you can, say I'm so exhausted, and that's okay. I'm going to figure out what I need.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to figure out how to get more energy.
That has power in it.
Yes.
That's taking ownership.
Yes. And you're not having to fight with yourself.
Right? I shouldn't be tired. I shouldn't be exhausted. Yeah.
Yeah, don't shit on yourself.
No.
Not okay. Not
Another question I like to ask around all that, and this gets a little bit into Byron Katie's work, is that even true?
Mm-hmm.
And I had to really start looking at, am I really exhausted? What does exhausted really feel like? What does exhausted really, like true exhaustion, look like and feel like? Because I have experienced it. And is that what this is? Is it even true? And if the answer is yes, well, yeah, then go get some sleep and take some supplements and eat better food. But if the answer is no, well, then what is this instead? Because that usually does then lead me to that what is it that I need question. Or what can I do to support myself in and through this? What is it instead? What is my body or my guides or whoever and whatever trying to get me to look at that I'm not seeing? But yeah, affirmations, I'm with you. If I really am running on low and I'm telling myself, I am so energetic, my unconscious is going to be back there going, right. Or it's going to say, oh, because again, remember, our unconscious mind is the biggest eavesdropper like a bunch of toddlers. And it's going to go, oh, we're energetic? Okay. And it's going to look in the body and go, okay, where's the energy? Wow, there isn't any. Well, we better create it because she said we're energetic. Let's rev them adrenals. Which, frankly, when your adrenals are constantly revving, it's like putting your car in neutral and pushing on that gas. You hear that engine. And you know what that was your... Okay, I'm not a sound effects person. I just proved that. And...
it did what it needed to do in my brain.
Okay, good. Yay. Yay me. Maybe they'll hire me in Hollywood. But it revs the adrenals, which actually just leads to more exhaustion. So, because the body is an amazing thing and it will do what it needs to do to get the job done. So if your unconscious mind is going, okay, body, she said we have energy. I'm not seeing it anywhere else. Adrenals, can you help us out? And they're like, oh, damn straight I can. Yeah, I got this. Let me rev. Okay, that is a simplified version of how things work. And if you are an MD, please do not come back and be like, that's not how the body works. In a way, it is. It may not be super scientific, but in a way, that is how the body works. That is how the unconscious mind works and how they work together.
Yes.
So we want to make sure that we're not just plastering frosting on bullshit with affirmations. Affirmations are great. They can help you begin to shift things. And I'm with Lila. Ask the questions. What do you need right now? I love that one. What is it that you need that you're not getting? Mm-hmm. You've been posting also in this time is, and I can't remember now if you've been using the nurture word or nourish word, but you've been asking people, what is it that they need to feel nurtured, nourished?
Nourished.
Yeah, I figured it was probably nourished because that's kind of your word for this year. That's a beautiful thing to ask. What would have me feel, what would be nourishing to me right now? Ask yourself questions. Mm-hmm. So that's great for the internal dialogue. What about the external dialogue? The stuff that's being thrown at us constantly, especially right now in the media.
Don't watch the news.
Oh my God, yeah. Turn the shit off. That's number one. You want some tips? Turn it off. And log off Facebook. Limit your Facebook time. That's. I think I'm going to put a rule out there for myself on Facebook time, because it's become a bit much. The 3 words that are really making my eye twitch right now are unprecedented, uncertainty, and crisis.
A little cartoon character just got up and ran around in a circle, its arms flailing in the air.
Right?
Yeah.
What we feed our minds with, what we listen to. I'm sorry, you go listen to a bunch of sad, broken heart kind of love songs, not the love songs, but more like the lost love songs, the kind that you used to listen to after a breakup that made you cry even harder. Go listen to those for a week straight and tell me how you feel.
Okay, so hilariously, I was a hardcore Mary J. Blige. Like, every time I'm Going Down came on, I was belting it at the top of my I have no musical talent lungs.
Uh-huh.
And at some point after my first marriage ended, I was like, I don't really like this song anymore.
Mm-hmm.
It's a different vibration for me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yep. So media. And unprecedented. Why does unprecedented make you twitchy? I'm curious.
I think that one is just because it's being so overused.
Okay, gotcha.
Words can lose their power a little bit, or their impact when they're overused. And right now, everybody, unprecedented, 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 in an unprecedented. Oh my.
Okay.
It starts to just be like, oh my God, is that Charlie Brown's mom speaking in the background there?
I would like you to address crisis, and then I would like to go into uncertainty, because I love what you said about uncertainty.
Okay.
So, did you have anything else to say around crisis, or is it just more like,
well,
thinking about it will continue to put you in the space of feeling it?
Oh, no. Crisis, it's a little bit, it's similar to the uncertainty conversation. To me, they're very similar, both of those words. I'm going to tell a quick little story that one of my teachers used to tell, and I think we may have covered this too. But if you're new to our podcast, yay, you get to hear it for the first time. And if you're not, never hurts to reinforce. This is what one of my teachers, an elder, the story he used to tell. And, in one of the villages, there was a father, and he had an only child, a son. And one day, that son was gifted a pony. And everybody was like, oh, it's such a wonderful thing. He was gifted a pony. And what a beautiful horse that is. Oh, that's fantastic. How lucky he is. And the father shrugged and said, could be a good thing, could be a bad thing. And so the son learned to ride the horse and did a great job at that. But as sometimes happens, the horse was startled and the son fell off the horse and broke his leg. And all the villagers said, oh, that's a terrible thing. How horrible that your son fell and that he's broken his leg. Oh, that's awful. And the father shrugged and said, could be a good thing, could be a bad thing. Not long after that, while the son was still healing, a battle with a neighboring nation happened. And they came through to recruit the sons of all the families who could fight. Well, because his son's leg was broken, they passed him by, which meant he wasn't put in harm's way. And all the villagers said, oh my gosh, you are so lucky. That is such a good thing that his leg had been broken and that he was passed over. And the father shrugged and said, could be a good thing, could be a bad thing. And what that story is designed to show us is things that happen are just things. Yeah. Was his broken leg a good thing or a bad thing? At first it was like, oh my gosh, it's horrible. You don't have a son to help you plow the fields and he can't ride his horse. His leg is broken. That's a bad thing, right? Maybe, but then that broken leg prevented him from being called to fight where he could have been killed. So yay, it's a good thing. But it's not a good or a bad. It just is. It just is. It simply is.
Yeah.
We assign a meaning to things. We as humans label things good or bad. And or we have in NLP, we call it an internal representation of a word. I might ask 10 people which word has a stronger meaning to them, angry or mad. And I get different versions. For some people, mad is worse. Man, angry's okay, but you do not want to see me mad. Other people are like, nah, mad is a little more mild than angry. So everybody relates to that word or has an internal representation of that word that's different. And uncertainty and crisis, is it a crisis out there? Well, if I'm constantly looking at my life through the filter of it's a crisis because of my internal representation of the word crisis, I think, code blue in a hospital, that's a crisis, right?
Yeah.
Somebody just impaled themselves on rebar. That's a bit of a crisis. Amazing that mine are all like hospital. I must be watching too many hospital shows recently. There are things that are a crisis. Maybe.
Yeah.
Unless they're not. But to me, that's kind of the level of what something has to be labeled crisis for me. So if I'm labeling something that's happening in my everyday life to me and myself and everyone around me and everyone around the globe, and I'm labeling it crisis, there goes that adrenaline pump up again.
Yeah.
There goes my panic up again.
Yeah.
And then I start looking at everything through that filter of, oh, they said we're in a crisis, so let me see everything. Yeah, let me see everything through the lens called crisis. Mm-hmm. It will cover and color everything I do, every choice I make, how I approach things. Crisis. Are some things kind of sucky for some people right now? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Are they unsure of what's going to happen next? Probably. I don't know what's going to happen next either. I kind of get that if I'd listen to my crew a little bit more, I might freaking know. But thanks, guys. I appreciate that little download. Sassy pants.
I'm staying out of this.
Somebody up there's a sassy pants, and I kind of like it, but I'm not telling them that. But those filters we see things through, to me, that's where the word crisis, it's like, I personally would prefer to move through life looking at things through a different filter than the filter crisis. Mm-hmm. It's constricting. It has me feeling panicky if I'm thinking life's a crisis, because in a crisis, what do? We mobilize. We triage. All these medical war terms, come to mind for me when I think crisis. That is, why would I want to move through life looking at it through the lens called crisis?
Right.
Because that's going to probably send me back to I'm exhausted, right?
Yes, because I just spent however long in panic.
Yeah.
I'm very good when I panic.
Yeah.
But I don't like that. I don't want to be in that place. I would rather be calm.
I actually do pretty good, when it really is a medical crisis like that, if somebody was bleeding, I don't tend to panic. I actually, and I blame / thank my mother for this, because she was a nurse. Mm-hmm. And my dad was a firefighter. And so I think that I inherited a little bit of just handle it when it comes to that level of medical, I'm going to just call it medical emergency kind of thing. But
I am good in an emergency period.
Yeah. But in a crisis, that sort of this rip the Band-Aid off slowly, we don't know what's happening, what's going on in the world today. Mm-hmm. It's a different scenario than a medical emergency. This is more
this isn't actually a crisis.
No. But that's what they're saying on the news.
Yeah.
That's what all the talking heads are saying, Lila. How can you say it's not a crisis?
Because I'm not a
because
talking
it's not.
head.
Well, there is that.
Because I'm actually using my head and I'm looking out in the world. I mean, so I walked into the grocery store one day and I had a panic moment where I looked around the produce section and it was empty except for apples, lemons, and limes.
Interesting.
Like, there were no greens. There were no potatoes. There was just nothing. So the produce section was empty, and the meat section was empty, and the meat counter where you buy, like, the individual chicken breasts and a third of a pound of ground beef, like, all of that was empty, and I went, well, this feels interesting in my body, and my lizard brain is freaking out. But, dude, we have some food at home. So we have 72 hours worth of food, regardless of what is going on in this grocery store right now. So we are going to be okay for at least 72 hours. And then the next time I went into the grocery store, there was food.
Right?
Not a crisis.
So I was going to say, so crisis averted. And how often do we do that? Just not even in this, at this space in time.
Hold on a second, please.
Speaking of crisis, how often do we do that? How often do we think that it's a crisis happening?
Okay, we're going to have to edit this.
All right.
I think Lucas broke Lee's finger in the door.
Do you need to go?
Probably.
We can pick back up whenever, and we'll do part 2, or do you want to just end this and let them know we're going to do a part 2 on it?
Not really sure. My brain is like, I'm pretty sure his finger is broken.
Okay. So why don't you go take care of him, and we will figure it out later.
Okay. Thanks.
Whichever way we decide to do it. And let me know if there's anything you guys need, okay?
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Let me know what happens.
I will.
All right. Bye.
Okay, bye.